Hi, I'm Sean Irvin with the Sioux Falls Planning Commission. I'm the current chair. Welcome to the planning preview for our upcoming meeting in October 3rd. We hope to see you all there. I have with me today Jeff Schmidt, the Sioux Falls Chief Planning Official. Welcome, Jeff.
Hello.
We're going to talk through a few of our agenda items coming up for this next month on October 3rd, as we said. And it looks like our first item is rezoned from an S1 to an RA2, which is apartment residential, just east of Roosevelt High School. Is that correct?
Yeah. This item has been on the agenda, I think, for the last month, and then we deferred it to this month. Or it might be. So the neighbors know about it. We've had some outreach. The applicant, as well as staff and council, has met with the neighbors and the applicant. The issue is this is the Assembly of God facility, the campus. It's zoned S institutional, but they have some land area on their campus that they're looking to redevelop or build on. So that's the portion that they still have their house of worship, they're still their church, but then maybe build some apartments on the north side in the back. At that point, they'd rezone that piece to RA2, and the neighbors have done some really good outreach to us and the applicant and said they have had historically some concerns about drainage. So whether this goes through or not, what are we going to do about drainage? They've also raised some concerns about traffic, and then what do the buildings, what's the building's scale and massing look like? So at this point, it's still on the agenda for October 3rd. And so we'd have a public hearing at Planning Commission and it'd go forward to City Council one way or the other.
Sure, and then city staff looks at all of those different elements that you just listed, including drainage and all those things. And that's really not a piece of what we're necessarily considering directly, but it all impacts the decision, doesn't it?
Yeah, indirectly. We always, on all these items today, we always try to look at, what the building codes look like, what the engineering design standards look like, and when do we do those, how do we review those? That's really, one of the things that we have to continue to look at and address.
Sure, great. Looks like item number 2 is a rezone from RS single family residential to suburban district or to RD1 twin home. Just west of Minnesota Avenue at 608 West 57th.
Correct. It's Duluth, I believe. So,
okay.
And it's on the north side of the street. There's a parcel, I think it's maybe 5 acres. It's a really interesting parcel. Okay, it's right on 57th Street. And the parcels has, as what I always say at this planning preview, the pictures show 1,000 words.
Is this that one that has a really steep hill that faces to the north? Okay,
yes.
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, been for sale for quite a while.
Yeah.
And even the single family homes down there. I mean, 57th Street has a really interesting hill. It comes up to Minnesota and then Minnesota drops down and you have the riverbed down there. So you have this little knob there and everything else drops down. So this piece drops down and what are you going to do with it? It's zoned single family RS. You could put single family homes on there, which would raise issues as we talked about already. Well, what do you do about drainage? How does the traffic come in and out of these single family? Or this applicant saying they would like to do twin homes. Well, how's the drainage going to be? What's the traffic going to be? Well, the neighbors are asking those questions, and no matter what happens there, somebody has to look at, and we have to address the drainage and the traffic and how this site gets developed.
Right, and whether or not that seems to be kind of a favorable neighbor to some of the existing things around there, like we always think about kind of those gentle transitions from one type of zoning to another.
Yeah, it's a busy road, and maybe getting in some feedback from the existing property owners that are out there that live there. How does this fit into the neighborhood?
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Looks like item number 3 is a rezone from C2 commercial to RT2 townhome residential at, let's see, 11th and Spring. This must be the youth center, I'm guessing?
The youth center, okay. Correct. This is the Bowden Youth Center, and they're looking at doing a complete redevelopment, I guess is the easiest way to see it. We don't know if it will be on this month's agenda. A lot of these, they submit them, we review them, we start to get some outreach, and they may be on the agenda or they get deferred for future hearings. So this one, they were looking at the center, a daycare, some apartments. That area has already started to change and getting some more apartments in there, some accessible units, some more senior housing in the area, and this also is looking at that. How can you go from C2 commercial? Should it be commercial in that area, or should they do more, as it's saying here, townhome higher density housing? Well, we're like, okay, but as we continue to mention, where's your drainage? Where's your traffic? How do you do this? And they're like, okay, we got to figure these things. We're like, we understand that, but let's start the discussion.
Right, as well as the outreach to the neighbors and all of those things
correct.
have to be done ahead of time so that nobody's caught by surprise.
Yeah. So they're starting to look at it, and we got to figure these things out. And a lot of it happens concurrently. They're going through the process. They're like, yeah, but we have a lot of public hearings. So can we do the planning commission to see if they, if there's, what's the public going to say? So let's start hearing from the public and then go to city council, and it kind of flows that way sometimes.
Sure.
Doing it concurrently.
Okay. Let's see, next one is a rezone from RT1, single family residential, to RT2, townhome residential at 1201 South 7th. This must be just west of Avera's campus, I'm guessing.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's an existing property, it's an existing home. A applicant, a developer builder in Sioux Falls, wants to go in there and fix it up. Convert it. I don't know what the architectural developing term is, but he wants to redo this unit and make it more livable, more accessible. So again, broken record, push replay. I mean, we need to look at that too. It's probably not being used the best right now. It's not the best as a single family home. It's right on 7th. It's right across from Avera. It has a lot of impacts from that. But what do you want to do with it? How do you address some of these other issues? And we need to have a public hearing. We need to look at some of these engineering issues. So it's coming forward to a public hearing.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see, next one is rezone from RT1 single family traditional to RT2 townhome residential, very similar to the last one.
It is similar to the last one.
This is at 700 South 1st Avenue, which must be about a block east of Lyon Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. And it's the same gentleman, same builder developer, and he has this property, and it should be addressed and cleaned up and made more accessible and more livable. And so at that point, he's looking at doing a duplex. And so instead of maybe having it just one unit, having it 2 units.
Okay. Yep. Make it a little more efficient use of
Correct.
that property.
Yeah.
And, yep.
Some of those houses were so big at some point, and now how do you get them to work?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see, next one is a rezone from I-1 light industrial to I-2 heavy industrial. So very similar change, but going on the industrial side at 1001 East 52nd Street. This must be just west of Cliff Avenue at 52nd.
It's Northwest Concrete.
Okay.
And Northwest Concrete's existing up there. They came in, and I believe they were looking for some additions, some remodels. And so when we were looking at it with them, we realized that they should really be I2. They're more heavy than they were light. And so we're working with them to rezone it to get it to the correct zoning.
So it's not so much a change in zoning as trying to get the zoning to line up with what that existing use really is. So
Correct.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
kind of not only what to expect, but understanding what is really the potential for that site.
Correct.
Since it's already there.
Since it's already there.
Okay.
Yeah, they post the signs, we run the applications through.
And really we've done that on quite a few things this last year, one even beyond that, looking to try to align things with what's really there and not all of these kind of non-compliant conditions.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just so we can plan correctly,
Correct.
so that we don't have things that are misrepresented in our comprehensive plan, right?
Yeah, correct. Yep. When applicants, when property owners come in, you know, we've been doing this, I'd say for 40 years, but you know, at the same time for the last 4 years. They come in and they look at it and they go, really, you know, this next one's another good example. Hey, I actually have 2 units here. Well, we didn't know you had 2 units there. We don't go into your housing. And they're like, we thought you had 1 unit. Okay, let's change it.
Sure,
So,
sure.
yeah.
Nope, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's good planning too.
Yeah.
Let's see, next one is a rezone from RT1 single family traditional to RT2 apartment traditional. Let's see, this is at 801 North Duluth Avenue, which will put it just north of Hawthorne Elementary somewhere.
Yeah, and this applicant was looking to do it in a garage. And they came in to do a garage. You know, again, they've been out there existing for a long time. And when we pulled it up and we were looking at it, we were like, okay, that's great. Give you a building permit for a garage. We show it as a single family unit, RT, and he goes, actually, I have 2 units in there. We're like, okay, let's correct it. So, yeah.
And again, we look at the compliance with the neighborhood and how conducive it is to kind of the neighborhood character, but something that's been there for a long time obviously has typically been generally accepted in that neighborhood, and that's a piece of why we want to keep that up to date as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. Looks like the next one is a rezone from O office to C2 commercial, neighborhood and streetcar at 500 East 69th. This is the Callaway's complex,
This is Callaway's complex. This one's really interesting. You know, Callaway's isn't there. They're not currently operating, and the applicant, the business person that's looking at doing something differently there, they came in and they said, we want to put a restaurant back in there, and we want to operate a little retail store. And again, you pull up the zoning and we're like, okay, it's office. It's zoned office because it's really a golf course, and the golf course was an office building, and it had a clubhouse, and it's not set up for a restaurant with a bar. And you start looking at it and you go, okay, what are the neighbors going to think when you come in and tell them we're going to open a restaurant and a bar in the neighborhood? And so we sat down with the applicant. We said, it's not that we can't do it, it's that you have to have the public discussion. So they went out and they started to meet with the neighbors and said, we just want to open it, not back up as Callaway's, but as a restaurant and a bar. And the neighbors seem to support it. We got to have a public hearing. We really hope that the neighbors come out and at least are giving us some input, because we don't know until we have these public discussions and we talk about it on this channel. But they had a lot of people show up at the facility. They had them walk across the street and they go, we want it back here. We like coming across the street in the evenings and having a glass of wine and having dinner. And they said, okay, well, that's what we want to do.
Yep.
So,
and that existing use had been a really good neighbor, I would imagine.
Right.
So that probably helps things a little bit
Right.
for people to picture what that might be
correct, yeah. So, but at the same time, from our standpoint, you and I's world, we go, but we don't know that. We have to rezone it to commercial, and commercial means a lot of things. So we tell the neighbors at these public hearings all the time, we don't know for sure. All we can tell you is it's going to be rezoned to commercial. And so how do you do that? And we might make sure we have the public hearings and so the neighbors know this is what's going to happen.
But again, trying to align what that zoning is with the current or anticipated use as much as possible,
yes.
not something that is entirely different from what it's always been.
Correct. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
You know, and then I put down here, you know, there may be some questions about, well, how much traffic is there going to be? And we're like, again, those questions come up and we're like, we don't really know. Is it going to be a busy restaurant? I mean, how busy was it before when it first started opening? And those questions may come up.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's why input is great, and we always welcome that at
Yeah.
our meetings.
We don't always have the answers.
Right.
I mean, we generally don't have the answers, but like we don't know how busy a restaurant's going to be. It will probably ebb and flow, but we'll look at the traffic. Yeah.
Okay, good. Looks like the next one is a conditional use permit for on-sale alcohol at 2300 South Minnesota. So this must be just south of 31st Street or so,
Correct.
that little strip mall, I'm
Yes.
guessing. Okay.
It's been in the news media recently. It's the new ramen restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they can go there. They have a restaurant. They have the ability to do that. They are finishing their building and their tenant finish. But what they have to have a public hearing for is the conditional use for on sale. On sale for all the citizens at home, stakeholders, is the ability to have a drink at the facility. Off sale was when you go in and buy a package and leave with it. This is, hey, I'm going to have dinner, I'm going to have something to eat, and can I have a drink here, but I can't leave with it.
Yeah, it's the restaurant versus the convenience store.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. And so they're like, when we open up, we'd like to be able to offer a glass of wine, an alcoholic beverage. And we're like, okay, you have to have a public hearing on that and see if anybody has concerns. And again, only because it's within 500 feet of a sensitive use. Single family, park, church, school. But if they were out in the middle of a commercial area, 500 feet away from everything, they wouldn't have to have a public hearing.
What are some of the things, because I know there's a safety plan, there's all kinds of things that go along with this kind of an application. Could you just outline a couple of those things just so our watchers can hear a little bit about what we consider?
You mentioned the first one, the most critical one. With the license, they go through the police department for a security management plan. So we have to have that with the license. For this land use issue, we look at Planning Commission and say, is it an appropriate location? Does it make sense here? And then how do you regulate that? You start to look at, well, you can add conditions, where's the doors going to be located? How much signage are they going to have? What's the activity here? And when it's by a sensitive use, you start to look at how the business is going to be on this site. And historically, lately, we've kind of looked at, let's make sure that it's not, and I'm really trying to show it here, that if the sensitive uses are over here, then we want the activity over here. Don't flip it so that the impacts are towards the neighbors.
Right.
Do it the other way, and we can regulate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that's good to know.
The lights, the signage, the entrances, put it away from the neighbors.
Makes sense. And we may have a couple of other issues on the agenda that's not been entirely determined yet, but so please check the agenda as we prepare to get closer to this October 3rd meeting and make sure that some other items may not have been added.
Or some of these might not be on the agenda.
Right. Depending on if maybe the applicant has decided, we're going to defer that another month because we need to have a few more public meetings or whatever it might be, right? Okay, well, I think the other thing we wanted to talk about today is the upcoming Citizens Planning Academy. That's going to be held on October 1 and October 29. And we've invited a number of public that might be interested, and it sounds like we're actually full already, which is great.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you'll be covering and some of the things, how that whole process works.
Sure. The Citizens Planning Academy really speaks for itself. It's citizens talking about planning in an academy setting. Okay, so we did it for the first time last year. Staff kind of brainstormed. We're like, what we'd like to do is just get citizens in a room, for a couple hours in the evening, and can we just find out what they're interested in and have a back and forth over cookies and coffee and just talk, just like
some real outreach.
Just outreach.
Yeah.
And it went great last October, and so we said, let's do it again this year. We asked for applications. We start in September. We kind of send a note out there and say, apply. The reason we ask for applications is so that we know when the room is full, and then we can tell people. And then the other thing that I kind of highlight here is we need to know what the citizens are interested in. If they contact us and say, what we're most interested in is the color of how the trees are planted, and then we need to talk about landscaping. If their interest is in something else, and we go, then let's spend the time talking about the things that they're most interested in. We don't want to be there for a couple hours telling them about something that they don't have an interest in. So we ask them up front, tell us what your interests are. And then this year, we had an overwhelming response. The room got full.
Which is a great problem to have.
Which is a great problem to have. We're still out there doing outreach, telling people about it. I think, and again, I know you probably have some more questions, but one of the things, always call us. You know, just because we do a citizens outreach in October or citizens planning doesn't mean you can't call us all the time every week.
Sure, and you shouldn't hold your questions
Correct.
Until that kind of an
Yes,
opportunity
yes.
anyway.
Yep.
And I think you and I talked about, is it possible to expand that group a little
Yes.
bit bigger? And actually it is possible to do that, but the group ends up having less discussion and less interaction with staff,
Yeah.
which is really kind of the point of this type of an outreach. So we've decided that really it needs to be kept a little bit smaller for the interest of the group. But what we have talked about is the
We don't wanna
potential
take
to add one.
We don't want to take the Premier Center, you know, and get, you know,
Right,
yeah. No,
right.
But, yeah.
But the potential to add one or maybe even two during the spring just to address the demand, because if there continues to be a high demand, which if everyone watching this says, hey, I'm going to reach out and let them know I'd be interested in something like that, then we can know kind of how many more of those we need to really do to address the demand, right?
You know, so maybe next summer or next spring, we'll do another one if there's still a lot of applications out there. Some of these people that we're still hearing from, we'll offer it again and we'll do another session. The other thing we hear from is people that have gone through it once want the next session. This first time, we'd use the college atmosphere where like, this is the 101
The
class.
101, sure,
The 101.
sure.
You know, and they're like, when are you going to do the 201, the 301? When can we dig deeper into things? Because a lot of the stuff that we talk about, I'm using the landscaping example or the drainage example. We're like, look, we're just really low level. If you need more detail, we'll get more speakers in and more information, but that's not for today. People are like, but when can we get deeper? We may have to have some other classes and more levels. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
So today, keep reaching out to us. If more people are interested in the Citizens Playing Academy, contact us. Sean always highlights these things at the very end. Contact us. We'll keep you on the list, and we'll look at if there's interest in doing other sessions.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then what are some of the big topics that are looking like they're going to be part of this coming up session in October?
Sure. You know, in general, we tease them with, we talk about the population and the number of housing units. And that's really interesting to people. They're like, are we really going to have 60,000 more people? We're going to have 25,000 more. How do you do that? So that's where you start. They're very interested in going, I didn't realize we had 30,000 more housing units coming into Sioux Falls. Where do you put them all? Well,
That's why it's planning commission,
that's
right?
our planning.
Yeah,
You know, okay, we don't put them all over in this part of town. We don't put them all on this street. We have a plan. We have a 2040 plan. We work with every utility in Sioux Falls. We work with every department. We try to locate them where we have utilities. We work with the finance department with the budgeting. We work with the mayor's office and council. And then they're like, okay, this is a lot more detailed than I thought. And we're like, right, it's not just, let's just throw a couple houses over here. So that's where it starts. They start asking questions about, well, how many more people and where are they going to go? Yeah.
And then will you be attending, and what other staff might be there?
Our planning staff.
Okay.
So our planning staff, that's at planning commission meetings. And then we all kind of take a section and talk about what our interests are. And again, it's just a great opportunity to go back and forth with these things. And that we found out last year too is you start to build that great relationship with the public where they go, this was just a cursory, can we call you? And we're like, that's what we needed. Please call us. You know, when you're having coffee with your friends, when you're at church groups, you know, these questions come up. Now you can call us. Just feel free to call us whenever you have these questions.
Right, and really that's what staff is there for,
Right.
is to ask these kinds of questions. And so, yeah, I'd invite anybody looking through the agenda when that gets posted. If you have a question, we'd love for you to come to the actual meeting and address the question. But if you can't, or even if you want to just know a little bit more, Jeff or others are a great resource to just help you understand what's coming up and what are the concerns, so that when you do get to the meeting, you can be kind of wise about what you want to cover when you actually address the commission, and make sure that we're really analyzing everything, because we want to make sure that all the decisions are well considered decisions. Well, thanks, Jeff.
You bet.
And as I said, we're hoping to see each and every one of you at our upcoming October 3rd Planning Commission meeting. We hope to see you there. We hope to hear from you. We're always reaching out to try and hear more and more from you. We will have another opportunity on October 2nd, the day before that, at our planning, it's our briefing. To have an open public comment. And so if you have something that's not related to a specific agenda item, we'd invite you to come at noon to the old City Hall at the planning briefing, and address us at that time, and give us any of those additional public input items you might have. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for watching Planning Preview, and we hope it's been informative. Thank you.